Live from beyond the Beltway, this is Bruce DuMont with our weekly analysis of national politics, featuring occasional injections of rumor in your window, all offered up by our panel of political insiders, pundits, power brokers, public servants, and most importantly, plain-speaking Americans from coast to coast. Tonight, featuring commentary by Dan Johnson, Republican Judith Sherwin, Republican Kenton McCarthy, and Democrat Mark Gonzalez. Bruce DuMont back for hour number 2 of Beyond the Beltway from coast to coast and border to border. Nice to have you with us. We continue in studio here in Evanston, Illinois with our good friends Dan Johnson and Judith Sherwin. And we are now joined via the magic of a Zoom by Mark Gonzalez. Mark joins us from Los Angeles. Good evening, Mark. Nice to have you with us. And also Kenton McCarthy, who is joining us from Phoenix, Arizona. Kenton, nice to have you with us as well. I want to begin with you, Mark. You are the chairman of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. You have one of the most significant Democratic organizations in the country that you run. And also, we should mention that you are the state director of Joe Biden's presidential campaign. So my question to you, Mark, is the pressure's on. And a lot of people have already voted in the state of California. And my question to you is, as the operator of the whole campaign, do issues really make that much difference to you personally, or is it all about the nuts and bolts and campaign apparatus?
Well, first of all, good evening, Randall, and thank you again for having me back on your show. I wish we were together in person, but obviously I'm glad to see you're healthy and safe. I'm speaking to you all today just to be safe as the chairman of the LA County Democratic Party specifically.
Right.
We did obviously endorse the Joe Biden campaign, and your question was about the nuts and bolts. I think it's absolutely important. The way California goes, so does the rest of the nation. LA County is 1/3 of the voting base of the state. Oh. We've got some very important and crucial down ballot, down ticket races that are extremely important. Some of them would be considered nonpartisan, but it's extremely important to make sure that the candidates who are elected to judicial office, school board, and none all of the such, are Democrats. And yes, California is a safe blue state, but we can't forget that in 2016, 27 of the 58 counties went for, Trump. And so I think we've got a newer base of voters who are excited and ready to turn out here in California. We're calling out to the 17 battleground states to make sure that they turn out to vote as well. And so, I don't want to take anything for granted, and none of us are going to take this race for granted because we don't want to feel like we felt in 2016.
Kenton McCarthy, when you moved from Illinois many, many years ago, you moved to a very safe red state. Arizona had 2 United States senators that were both Republicans, and now it is being described as more than just a toss-up state. It looks like it's going to be a state that's going to move in the blue column, and also it looks like you're going to pick up a Democrat U.S. senator, and you will have 2 of those at the same time since God knows when.
Yeah, we've been Californiaized.
Is that really, Kenton? Is that what really is that what's really happened in Arizona?
Oh yeah. Easily. You've got, the Democrat Party has done a good job. I get that. Immigration has been a big issue because immigrants typically vote Democrat. But we're seeing such an influx of Californians. As Mark said, he hoped that as California goes, so does the U.S. Well, Californians are voting with their feet and their checkbooks by leaving California. You can't find a house and pay the asking price in either Montana or Arizona these days. Real estate is en fuego because of the exodus of the smart people leaving California.
Well, let's talk about the reality of that. Let's go back to what Mark said. If they have enough Democrats, Mark always wants more Democrats, but if they've got enough Democrats and a percentage of those Democrats are leaving to Arizona and Montana and Nevada and Utah, looking long term, isn't that the death knell of the Republican Party? Because there will still be people that will be going to California, and they'll be staying there at least for a few years, and the rest of the people will hightail it eastbound to these other states.
Well, that's exactly
Mark, go ahead. I'll let you tackle this and then back to Kenton.
Sure, that's exactly what's happening. I think, look, Arizona was the home to Sheriff Arpaio. He's gone. I think people are also changing their voter registration, not just to Democrat, but to decline to state. They're sick of the party. It's country over party. And the Republican Party has completely lost its base as the president has lost his mind. And that's exactly what's happening. And so the fact that people are going to other states is for other opportunities. We in LA County are the home to 6 million voters, registered voters, 3 million of which are Democrat. And so people are seeing the light, and that's what it is. And so I think in Arizona and in Nevada and the states that you mentioned, we're seeing them go from purple to extremely blue simply because people are starting to see the light, and they don't want to end up like we did in 2016.
Judith Sherwin, she is a Republican. She joins us here in studio in Illinois. And Judy, my question to you is, what is being described as the demographic shift of politics in the western part of the United States, I mean, isn't that what we've seen in Illinois as it relates to many people from Chicago moving to the suburban areas, and those suburban areas becoming more and more competitive and in many cases Democratic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's true, and it's interesting to me, though, that people are leaving California. They're leaving California for a reason. They're leaving. I mean, let's speculate a little bit. They're leaving because of rolling blackouts. They're leaving because of taxes. They're leaving because of a lot of things that they don't like about the climate. And I don't mean climate like the weather in California. So they come to another state where the political situation is different. And it is, I guess, a mystery to me why they import the same policies that they're running away from to the state they're going to. And I'm not so sure that that's exactly what's going on.
Kenton McCarthy, could you just pick up on that? Do you agree with Judy on that? And do you have an answer to why, if people are leaving California in droves, as you have suggested, why are they not returning to maybe a Republican position when they move to Arizona or Utah?
Well, I don't know that they were Republicans, hardcore Republicans in the first place before they left. California, you got to remember, in 1980, California, Reagan won it handily, and the Teamsters endorsed Ronald Reagan. So California has changed. California is quickly turning into a banana republic, where it's just culturally, politically, you name it. Everything is going wrong in California. So they're leaving. I don't think someone who's pro-choice leaving San Francisco for Arizona is going to become pro-life when he or she lands in Scottsdale. So yes, they will still import their intrinsic biases, their political biases, and it will shape the landscape. What I will add, because Mark did bring up Joe Arpaio. Joe Arpaio is probably the most loved and the most overwhelmingly returned to office sheriff in the nation. He got caught up because old age caught up with him. The Obama Justice
and the
Department
feds
went after him,
yeah.
and George Soros.
Yeah,
George Soros.
Xenophobia.
George Soros.
Right. One at a time.
George Soros has made Arizona more in play and more powerful than people realized. Paul Penzone, who beat Joe Arpaio, was funded by Soros to the tune of $2 million.
Wow.
George Soros pretty much owns Arizona State University. So as far as a global player, dusty, hot Arizona, previously boring and traditional, is now becoming a George Soros Bolshevik hotbed.
Okay, when we come, we'll all be able to respond. Well, we're going to spend a couple of minutes thinking about that when we come back. I'm Bruce DuMont. Don't go away.
Opinions are something you form after watching the news, not something you hear from us during the news. It's not how it used to be. It's how it should be. Now, it's the way it is. News, not talk. Facts, not opinions. In prime time, 7 nights a week. News Nation, coming September 1st, 8, 7 Central on WGN America. Your news, your nation.
A line is a powerful thing. It connects the global economy to your living room. Cleaner air to stronger markets. factory floors, to less crowded roads. Today's progress to tomorrow's promise. Norfolk Southern. One line, infinite possibilities.
Bruce DuMont back. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. We're going to go to Mark Gonzalez out in Los Angeles because you could hear him guffawing the description of George Soros and the power that he has in the great state of Arizona as Kevin McCarthy was talking. So, Mark, we'll let you, how much of that Soros money do you have in Los Angeles County?
I wish. I don't even have any. I have zero. So, no, listen, I think it's really interesting for two people who are not even in or from the state to criticize a state they don't know nothing about. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. We are open arms. People are coming to California every day. California has 40% Latinos of people who look like me. People are not fleeing the state. They're coming here for more opportunities. And so I think what's being said is just not factual or accurate.
What do you think of some of the things that are going on in the state? I mean, whether it's homelessness, whether it's the rolling blackouts, whether it's the concern about the governor and how he has handled COVID-19, schools not being open. I mean, not everything is hunky-dory in California.
Well, the way you're posing the question is very one-sided. I think you have to take into consideration the health. You have to take into consideration the health and the safety and what our governor is putting forward. We're not like other Republican states, which are allowing the virus to spread. We're trying to contain it. Our population is huge here. And so you just can't let people run amok and open up the schools and say it's okay for them to go through it. Now, is there a digital divide? Are there issues that are happening in poorer communities where they don't have access to computers? Yes. Is that something we need to fix? Absolutely. And that's something that the state legislature, that's something that the governor need to go back to the table and need to fix for our communities. Now, in terms of how he's handled the situation, I think he's handled it right. I think we're containing the virus. We're a big state with a lot of population, just like New York. And so he's definitely been doing that. And, you know, the Trump administration likes to tout about the forest fires when 57% of the forests here are controlled by the federal government, federal government in which the Trump administration has cut time and time again. And, you know, Governor Gavin Newsom is doing the best job for California. And as a California resident myself, someone who sits here and pays taxes, I'm proud of the governor. I'm proud of the work that he's done in our state to protect me from not having COVID.
Quickly, do you cringe at all when the governor may say something fairly nice about the president or vice versa? Because in some cases, if you listen from afar, it sounds like they're buddies.
I think he has to. He has to. I mean, he has to. I mean, now is not the time to get in a fight with the president of the United States. We need an economic solution. We need to be recovered.
Dan Johnson is our Democrat here. He has a question for you.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Mark, quick question. I think LA County is a little bit like Cook County, where we are. 5 million people. 20 years ago, red suburbs, blue city. But today, Trump is not your typical Republican. Trump has moved the party way to the unethical, and now with COVID to the incompetent, where Republicans used to be, hey, we're about clean government, we know how to run things well. I'm seeing this Biden Republican surge of Republican voters, sometimes, higher income, higher educated, saying, I can't vote for this incompetent con artist again, and I'm just disgusted with what the president is doing to my traditional party. So this time I'm voting for Joe Biden. Maybe in 22 I'll go back to the Republicans. But for now, I am trying to disinfect the party of everything that Trump and his con artist family stands for. Are you seeing that in LA County?
How do you really feel, Dan?
I mean, it's out there, right?
We're now going to ask Mark to offer his interpretation of the Republican Party in California.
Right, yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I love the way that he said it. It's true. Look, for me, on a personal note, my sister-in-law in Texas is a Republican. My brother is a Republican. And they asked me 2 weeks ago to get them a Joe Biden lawn sign. They don't even want to associate themselves with Trump. And they exactly what he just said, don't want to associate, the Trump and being a Republican in the same sentence. And so they're voting for Biden, right? They're going to go that way. And so, in California, where being a Republican is distant third in people who are registered to even vote. I mean, the Republican Party in California is it's completely missing. So, Democrats are high up there, decline states are high up there, but people are seeing the light. And, as it was stated, you have to keep in consideration that Republican Party has lost its way. They've completely split, and you have the president who represents what the Republican Party is about, and the Republican Party under this administration is a complete failure.
All right, let's go back to Kenton McCarthy. Kenton, would you agree that the Republican Party has gone astray? And if so,
yes.
How do they get back on track to not only get Arizona back into the red column, but how do they pick up the pieces after this election?
It was funny. This week I was listening to Bannon was talking about Pope Francis, and some hardcore Catholic dabbled in or came close to calling him a heretic. And I think Trump was, if not a heretic, he was probably the biggest whistleblower ever in D.C. So he's fought the establishment on both sides of the aisle. I think 90% of the Republicans today in the Senate and the House are gutless, feckless, and afraid of disrupting their coziness and afraid of disrupting the status quo globally and locally. So he has sorry, Mark, he has bigger cojones than probably anyone
Kenton,
in
I
the
like
Senate, with the exception of Cotton and Josh Hawley. He's fighting both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. All right, Judith Sherwin, and then we're going to go back to Mark, and then Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree wholeheartedly with Kevin. That's absolutely correct. There isn't anybody who has the guts that this guy has. And he's fighting them all. He's fighting the establishment. He's doing it constantly. He's doing it in his own party. I think it's almost worse than what he has to do with his own party than what he has to do with the Democrats, because you expect it from them. You don't expect the backstabbing that he gets from his own party. And I mean, I would add Mitch McConnell to the list of people with cojones. I mean, he's people who think they're going to move Mitch McConnell. That's not happening either. So I think that the Republican Party after Trump, I'm not sure what it is, because he is his own political movement. And if you don't understand that, and you talk about somebody who says, "Oh, I'm a Republican, but I'm going to vote for Biden." There were Republicans in 2016 who voted for Biden too. There were people who never voted for anybody who came out and voted for Trump, and they're going to do it again. The registrations that have been done by people working for Trump campaign, the Republican Party, are way over the top in all of the swing states.
Mark Gonzalez, in recent weeks, there's been quite a few stories about some demonstration in the polls that there's a larger number of Hispanics that may be voting for Donald Trump, primarily men than women. I'd like to get your reaction to that first, and then I've got a follow-up, as does Dan Johnson. Go ahead.
Sure. As far as I understand about those polls, they're completely fake. The numbers were small, and the polls were conducted in English only. They were not conducted in Spanish. They were not conducted to foreign-born Latinos who can vote. They were specifically just for U.S.-born English-speaking Latinos, and it was only about 100 people. So
Judith Sherwin she wants to challenge that.
Yes, I would like to challenge that, because Telemundo.
No, they do count. It's just my point is they're selective and cherry picking the poll that benefits them.
Telemundo did a poll among their Spanish-speaking station with Spanish-speaking viewers regarding Donald Trump and his popularity, and it was quite over the top. So I don't agree that this was, English speaking.
Well, I'm the only Latino on this phone call right here. I think I'm fair to say that we do not feel that way. So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
You can say you don't feel that way.
Yeah, but you're also the only Democratic German that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan Johnson's got a question for somebody, and then we're going to take a phone call.
I guess I'm curious why. I think the idea that Trump is different than the Republican Party is absolutely true. But I've been wondering why Trumpers just sort of have no problem with his blatant corruption and just enriching himself by millions of dollars. And is it because he's got this perception that he doesn't care?
I had to stomach listening to you the previous hour. Your stack of lies can be seen from space.
So you
just
don't
told
think
that
the president? Excuse me, hold on.
he's enriching
No.
himself by millions of dollars.
Kenton's
The guy's
go ahead.
already got more money than he knows what to do with. Why does he need to go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to further enriching himself? Who does he think he is, Harry Reid?
And what makes you think that he has all this money since he refuses to share his tax returns with
Okay,
you?
so now
Why do you think that he's wealthy?
He's either enriching himself or he's poor.
Yeah, right.
Oh, he's clearly been enriching himself. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
You
right.
can see that his entire family, which is, it's like North Korea. It is absurd on its face.
Do we
All of them working
Wow,
for
let
nothing.
me finish one
All
point
of them
since I was
working
called a
for the
liar. Let me
country
finish
for
my
nothing.
point.
One at a time, Dan.
Appalling that we have a president's family while the Trump organization is an ongoing business concern. To allow them to work in the highest levels of our public office to enrich their family is by itself disqualifying, but somehow Trumpers are okay with it. I don't think
It was
traditional
okay for
Republicans
Hunter
are.
Biden. It was okay for Hunter Biden, right?
All right, question for Mark Gonzalez. Mark, you come from one of the bluest of blue states. You, in your current role, and you were a deputy for a while. I mean, you've been watching the machinery out there for a long time with great success. I recall, I think that the last time you were on this program was in 2018, early on. I think I was out there in January or February when it was nice and cold back in Illinois. And you projected on that particular program that you thought that the Democrats were going to sweep control of all the U.S. Senate seats or U.S. House seats in California, and that's, by golly, what happened. But my question is, if everything is controlled by Democrats in California and Arizona and Utah and ultimately in the United States, my question to you is, as an American, as someone that's interested in the future of the country, is it good to have all of your eggs in one basket and that literally you destroy one of the two major parties by having too much control in one focus? We'll be back with your answer in a minute.
Here's how you can make your own face covering in a few easy steps with items you can find around the house, like an old scarf, a bandana or a hand towel, or you can make a face covering out of an old t-shirt. Fold it to the middle from the bottom, fold it to the middle from the top, fold it again to the middle from the bottom, and again from the top, and then 2 rubber bands, one on one side and one on the other side. Then you fold either side to the middle, and you have yourself cloth face covering. It's that easy.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Stoic family. From the town of Beltway, meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy.
With instant acceleration, electric cars are more fun to drive and more affordable than ever. Electric cars are here. Plug in to the present.
Bruce DuMont back on Beyond the Beltway. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. We're going to let each of our guests now take about 10, 15 seconds to identify themselves and tell everybody who they are. And we're going to begin in Arizona with Kenton McCarthy. Kenton?
Yeah.
Look into the camera. Look into the camera. Because
and then I grew up in formerly Republican DuPage County, way back when.
Yeah.
And my first appearance, I think your producer lost his Rolodex in ๽94, so reached out to me to be served up to Jesse Jackson Sr., and that was my first time on your show.
I know.
And apparently you can hear me?
We can. You became a friend, didn't you?
Apparently I held myself good enough to get invited back, and it's always a treat to be here.
But didn't you and Jesse Jackson become friends for a while, or at least acquaintances?
Yeah, he's a thoroughly likable guy, and even more likable than Senior's Junior. And John is a class act as well. I like the whole family.
Yep.
I just disagree with him politically. I have no beef with him personally.
By the way, next week we should mention that David Maciotra, who's a frequent guest on this program, he has written a new book about Jesse Jackson, and he will be here to talk about that book as well. Actually, I think it's a couple of weeks from now. Let's go to you, Mark Gonzalez. Tell everybody listening around the country a little bit about your background and your tremendous political success.
Thank you so much. Mark Gonzalez, Chairman of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. Grew up here in LA, originally from Texas, but South Texas, but moved here when I was a child with my mom, who's originally from Los Angeles, and chairman of the largest party in the state and the nation.
Very good. And Dan Johnson.
Hey, Dan Johnson, local politician, a lobbyist in the state legislature. I think 20-year veteran. So, Bruce, it's always fun to be here, so I appreciate the opportunity. And launching my software tomorrow, How Many Votes, for organizers and lobbyists at howmanyvotes.com. Thanks for the commercial, Bruce.
And when you were here first, you were young and single, and now you're a father of 4.
Father of 4. They're 3, 5, 7, and 9, which is why it's hard for me to get here. It's not easy to get permission.
Judith Sherwin.
I'm Judith Sherwin. I am an attorney in Chicago. I've been practicing law for a number of years here. I've known Bruce for a long time, but I've only been on the show a couple years. I teach law school at Loyola University in Chicago in the graduate program, and occasionally teach a seminar in constitutional law and the First Amendment.
Very good. We have callers on the line. Let's go to Mike, who's listening to us in California. Whereabouts in California, Mike?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Where are you calling from in California?
Great. It's just outside of Sacramento. It's called Rio Linda.
Okay, and what question did you have or comment?
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to say that I became in other words, I was a lifelong Democrat for most of my life until I, through my work as an educator for the last 25, 30 years, became aware of the vast criminality and plunder of the people by my former party. And so now I'm an awakened, no longer California Democrat. And
specifically, what was it about the Democratic Party that you felt was dishonest, that you discovered?
Well, for one thing, our California schools, when I was like 30 or 40 years ago, when I went through high school, we were number 1 in the nation. Now, after billions and billions of dollars have been spent, we're number 47th in the nation. And our students, some of our students can't even think in the classroom. They're trained not to even think. And so they can't write, some of them can't even write their names. And we're talking junior high and high school.
Mark Gonzalez, could you address in as specific a term as you wish this challenge? I mean, in doing this program, I've heard this complaint, not exclusively about California public education, but I've heard it a lot, that once upon a time California was the golden state in more ways than just its motto, and in recent decades, it's fallen on hard times.
Well, I think it's a result of, we also have to keep in mind Pete Wilson was a staunch Republican who tore the state apart. Arnold Schwarzenegger was also a Republican who tore the state apart. And so, Gavin Newsom and others have had to clean up that mess, and the state legislatures have done that as well. Prop 13, we need split roll. We need that now, and that's also a result of the Prop 98 funding that's supposed to go in to support their schools that are not. And I think that funding is as a result of the Republican administration that was in charge of California at the time.
And I should say, for a fact check, I've been on. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark, but I did a little internet sleuthing, and according to the U.S. News and World Report, California's at 21 instead of 47.
And also, when you talk about a big issue that you are facing in California, and frankly, every school district in America is facing it, Mark, and that is, distance learning in the wake of COVID-19. There are some people that would wonder, why is it that with all of the tech money and Silicon Valley in California, why is it that so many California school children still don't have the ability to engage in distance learning because of a lack of hardware and connectivity?
No, I mean, that's just a fact. It's a lack of resources and a lack of connectivity. That was the first thing I said. There's a digital divide that exists. And I see people every day who are in line for food banks to get a bag of groceries.
But why, Mark? You've controlled the governorship for many years. You've made some exceptions. There's no question about it. Most of them were 20 years ago. You've controlled the state house. You control the congressional delegation. I mean, why is it? And again, you've got all these, and I'm sure all these Silicon Valley people are contributors to the state Democratic Party.
But you're lumping up the entire state as a whole to assume that the digital divide is specific to the entire state. You're putting the question out there that nobody has access to that, and I think it's as a result of some of the superintendents of the particular school district. So we got to be very clear about that. And it's not every school district in the state has this problem. It exists, especially now unified. I'm not going to sugarcoat that.
Okay. Kenton McCarthy, how do you come down on that issue?
Now it's the local superintendent's fault instead of the establishment's fault. Okay. It's always someone else. The only thing I'll say is that we've managed to take COVID, which is a minor irritation, and turn it into a calamity. I mean, this is a calamity politically. We've had devastating effects on working class, low income, minorities, women, and mostly children. The people who still push for lockdowns and learn by Zoom should be locked up in prison. These are crimes against humanity, what we are doing to children today in the educational space.
Why are we talking about who has children in cages? You don't want to address that, do you?
You mean the Obama-built cages?
I'm talking about the Trump administration with the children in cages. Where's your sympathy for that?
What about the Obama-built cages?
We're talking about
so would Republicans acknowledge? Would Republicans acknowledge?
Dan, penalizing vast swaths of American children by forcing them to not learn at home.
I think that's just ridiculous. We have 210,000 lives. Americans have died from COVID-19 as a result of this administration, as a result of your president.
No, as a result of the COVID virus.
Like I said in January, Bruce, the first victim of a pandemic is context.
Elaborate.
If we lost 200,000 people, how many hundreds of thousands did we lose to the flu? If this was a normal flu and we said we're going to have an uptick in deaths, primarily among those who are old.
Do you even believe in science? Oh my goodness, what are you talking about?
I think this is a good example of the Biden Republican surge, because there's a big element in our country that says, well, I don't care what Dr. Fauci says. I don't care what the scientist that studied this thing says.
I don't care what Dr. Fauci says.
Exactly. And I think
can
I get a
just 1 second. Wait a minute, 1 second. We got it one at a time. Kenton McCarthy, and then Judith, and then back to Dan. Go ahead, Kenton.
Bruce, I told you in March, you called it combustible when I said that the cult of Anthony Fauci poses the greatest threat to our nation's economy and democracy and institutions, period. I still stand by that.
Judith.
We've taken a calamity and turned it, we've taken a minor irritation and turned it into a calamity in every facet.
Judith.
Okay, so back in March and February, the predictions that were made were that 2.2 million Americans were going to be dead of the COVID virus as of right now. In addition, there was going to be something like 30% unemployment. That has not happened. There's a reason why that hasn't happened, and the reason is the Trump administration's mobilization of industry and the American people to keep that from happening. Yes, there have been 210,000 people who have lost their lives to COVID. The death rate has gone down. Nobody wants to acknowledge that. The recovery rate has gone up. There are therapeutics that didn't exist in March that only exist because of the push from the administration. And so you may think that's funny, Mark, but it's not funny. It is something that is extremely important, and it's something to bear in mind when you open your schools on November 4th, which the person who runs the schools in Los Angeles has already said she's going to do.
As a political matter, I think this is why there's such a Biden Republican surge, because I think people see this big swath of the electorate and the president tolerating it. That puts people at risk, and you couldn't ask for a better symbol than the president himself and all his close advisors getting the virus.
We've got to pause. I'm Bruce DuMont, back shortly with our last segment.
CSX moves forward, so do the rest of us.
Bruce DuMont back, and this is our last segment. Thanks very much for joining us. You have been talking about the Biden Republicans. You've been making that big point is that you think that's the big story that's out there. When Joe Biden said that if he was given information from his scientists, he talked about what would happen, whether he would shut the nation down.
Yeah.
And he surprised the reporter at the time by saying, "Yeah, I would shut the nation down if the scientists told me to do that." And I think a lot of people probably cringed when they heard that, because in their view, although you may disagree with it, in their view, when you shut down the economy, you literally shut down the economy and people lose jobs. And people may be more concerned about that. And lives, okay? So my question to you is, do you like that answer? I mean, would you want President Joe Biden to shut down the economy again?
I mean, remember, this virus has a 14-day incubation period. Yeah. So if we did a hard stop for 6 weeks, because we never shut down our country. We never did. That's why the virus is still out there and it's growing.
So the answer is, what's the answer to my question?
My answer is, I wish we would have a competent administration that would follow public health guidelines.
How would that happen? He has said that he would listen. I want to go back to you in just a second, Kenton.
But absolutely, to answer your question, if his, the scientific,
you said talking about Fauci.
Absolutely, I would love it. I would love to have no travel for 6 to 8 weeks. Stop this virus in its tracks, and then we can open up our economy safely.
Okay, now
that's crazy.
Kenton, question to you: If the Republicans,
this first, the WHO just yesterday said lockdowns are no longer the answer.
Right. They came out with a statement.
The WHO, which is
one at a time,
which is the darling of Dr. Fauci and Birx, said lockdowns are not the answer. And now you're saying if Joe Biden consults his scientists and they say lock it down again, you're all for that?
I am for beating this virus. And I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of living in fear of contracting a deadly disease. And I am looking forward to being able to travel again and try to make more money. And his incompetence is costing me and our economy billions.
One at a time. Judy,
can I get a word in?
Folks, we got to listen up here. Judy first, and then back to Kenton.
Okay, thank you. First of all, this idea about the president of the United States is going to issue a fiat and cut down and close down the country, can't do it. This system doesn't allow him to do it. Even Joe Biden, after he said what he said about scientists telling me I'm going to cut down the country, I'm going to lock down the country, took it back and said, I'm not sure I can do that. And the answer is he can't do that. He can't force everybody to wear a mask. He can't lock down the country. This is a federal system. The only people who can lock down anything are the governors, because they are the only people who have the police power. The President of the United States does not have the police power, and you should probably be pretty happy that he doesn't. That's how it was set up. He's not to have the police power.
Kenton McCarthy, back to you.
Okay, two people with whom I disagree wholeheartedly. One is Eric Holder, the other is Jane Fonda. They spoke the truth. Holder spoke the truth when about 10 or 12 years ago, he said, we have not reached a point where we can have an honest discussion about race. I totally agree with that. It's true today. Jane Fonda said, COVID has been the biggest gift to the Democratic Party. Or I think she called it God's gift to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
Right.
They have fetishized whatever unemployment lines, mortality rate, because it advances their political interest. They don't care about unemployment. They don't care about the death count. They care about power, period. It has been a gift to them.
Mark Gonzalez, response.
At Trump's own convention, okay, he said the results speak for themselves. And they do. The results of the Trump's presidency, more than 200,000 and 210,000 people are dead from COVID-19. 30 million on unemployment. 1 in 6 small businesses are closed. That's damning. That's Trump's presidency, and it's the biggest failure in American history. And you know that. We all know that. And I think that
viruses don't close
100,000 small businesses,
politicians,
millions of Americans have lost their lives. If we had closed, as we should have in January, we would not be where we are today. And that's entirely why not wearing a mask is why the entire Trump administration is completely getting sick. He's the spreader in chief.
Mark, but my question to you is, if Joe Biden becomes president and he says he wants to shut down the economy, are you not fearful that hundreds of thousands or millions of people will lose their jobs during the 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 8 weeks?
Let's keep in mind that the COVID relief packages are sitting on a Republican-controlled Senate. That is preventing people from getting the unemployment and the funds.
The only person preventing it is Nancy Pelosi.
In control in a Democratic U.S. Senate. When Mark Kelly wins in Arizona, then we will make sure that we will take care of all of Americans.
But if the president has said that if you give him a stand-up bill that provides $1,200 to every American, that he would sign that. Now, that's $1,200 that goes into everybody's pocket, including yours, everybody on this panel. And that would probably pass. Do you think a Democrat should stand up and say, no, I'm not going to put $1,200 in your pocket because I want to get, several $1 trillion to come to the state of California?
People who lost their jobs are in dire need of that $1,200.
Right. Well, then give it to them.
Nancy Pelosi is standing in the way of that.
Why don't you just give it to them? Question mark. Would you like a straight-up bill that puts $1,200 in everybody's pocket? Just a straight-up bill.
I would like a bill that prevents us from this disease spreading. I would like to be able to.
There is no such thing.
Okay. You know what I'd like, Mark? I would like my esteemed colleagues on the left to explain what they would do if we weren't able to print our own money.
Okay, that's a rhetorical question for next week. Mark Gonzalez, chairman of the Democratic Party in Los Angeles County. Kenton McCarthy, thank you very much for joining us from Arizona. Judith Sherwin, thanks very much for being with us in studio in Evanston. And Dan Johnson, thank you as well. I'm Bruce DuMont. Our thanks to Randall Belker and also to Colin McKnight for their assistance in the production of this program. Until next week, this is Bruce DuMont. Good night from Evanston, Illinois.
Not wearing a mask in public is like not wearing a seatbelt because no one else is.
Or not wearing a life jacket because it's uncomfortable.
Or not wearing a helmet because it's just one play.
Or not putting me in a car seat because we're only going down the block.
A mask is like anything that keeps us safe. It only works if you wear it.
So wear a mask when you're out in public, because we're all safer and stronger when we go all in, Illinois.
Today, fresh fruits and vegetables will go from a field in California to a grocer in Miami. A bottle of beer from Eagle Pass will journey to a restaurant in Manhattan. A 2x4 in Oregon will find its way to a townhome in Denver. A hybrid will say goodbye to Detroit and hello to a showroom in Austin. While a steel beam will leave a mill in Illinois for a high-rise in Phoenix. And a flat screen in China will head to an electronics store in Memphis. Because today, as every day, wherever you find business, you'll find us.